Yeah, yeah, you're my African queen. Ooh, Lord, just like the sun, light up the earth, light up my life. The only one I ever see with a smile so bright.
Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. If you are new, my name is Jarima, and in today's video we're going to be talking about autism. So before we start, guys, go ahead and like and subscribe to my YouTube channel and just share this with other parents, family members, or friends to help them out. Basically, I will be giving you guys a lot of tips and my own experiences of having a child with autism. So let's get started. So when the idea of my son having autism was brought to my attention, I started doing a lot of research and watching YouTube videos, Googling meanings. Google honestly kind of didn't help much. So I started to look on YouTube for actual parents, or any family members dealing with a child with autism, to hear their experiences, and what I realized was there wasn't much people of my race, at least, talking about this publicly on any platform. Not that I know of at the time. It was back in 2019 or 2020. It was during COVID, honestly. It was during COVID. That year was crazy for everybody, including me. So during COVID is when I actually found out. Now that I know more and I did my research and had my own very experiences, now I know why there wasn't much people of my race talking about it publicly. When you do find out, you kind of your mind kind of builds very strong guard and a protection over your child. You basically want to protect them from the world, from everybody, from judgments, from comments. You just want to protect them. That's your main goal. When you find out that anything is wrong with your child, you try to just keep it confidential, within a family, just to keep them safe. Sometimes it's not a good thing though, So I will try my best in this video to give you guys a full understanding and a vision of having a child with autism. Bear with me though while I try to remember everything exactly how it happened, because like I said, my son is 4 years old now, and he was very young when I found out. In the year 2020, I enrolled Josiah, which is my son's name. I enrolled him in a daycare close to my first apartment, which the name I will not disclose until it's necessary. But at the time, he just made 1 year old. I don't remember if it was the first, second, or third week, but I just remember I picked him up from daycare and his teacher pulled me aside and she was like, hey, he seems to be focused on the ceiling fan a lot in class, during playtime he just focuses on the ceiling fan. When we do give him toys to play with, I mean, at first it was just a ceiling fan actually. So when she first brought it to my attention, his teacher at the time, one of his daycare teachers, she told me he's just focused on the ceiling fan, he looks up and he just stares at it. And in my first apartment, it was more like a studio. It was very small and we didn't have a ceiling fan. So what I told her was, okay, we don't have a ceiling fan at home, so it's not unlikely for him to be focused on something he's never seen before. He's probably he's probably amazed. He's never seen a ceiling fan. So this is what I'm thinking, honestly, in my head. And this is what I'm telling her too. I'm like, that's probably why. She's like, okay. And then a couple days later or the next week, she's like, during playtime, we notice that your son, he's not playing with the cars like the other kids, he's just turning the wheels on the cars and watching it spin and turning the wheels, and he's focused on, that. And I'm like, okay. In my head, I'm like, why are they picking on my child? I just thought they was picking on him, and I'm like, why are they so focused on him? Why are they picking on him? But I'm not telling them this. I'm just thinking this, and I'm just listening to them, taking it all in. I'm just like, okay. This was when he was in this daycare had stages. So it would be the baby class, you graduate from the baby class and you go to, you know, the toddler class, and then you graduate from the toddler class and go to, you know, there's like a little older class. I don't know what they call that class, but it's like different classes. So he was in the baby class at this time when they were telling me like those little things, and that's why I didn't think nothing of it, because one, he's a baby. Babies do things that are questionable, but like you can't question a baby. It's a baby, you know. So I wasn't thinking anything of it. And then I was like, there's no trace of anything in my family that I know of. There's no trace of anyone having any problems or development issues or anything that I know of. So my mind was like not even on that. Like I didn't think of that at all. So anyways, he moved to the toddler class, and then they would tell me, like I would pick him up and they would sometimes tell me about his behavior. Josiah doesn't like to sit down for story time. For story time, he likes to run off and do things. He'll sit for a second and he'll get up and run off and play with the toys. We would have to redirect him from the toys back to story time, and he doesn't sit still. And I'm like, okay, he is our only child at home. He doesn't have siblings to play with. Like I would just always try to give them like a vision of how he is at home. Like, okay, at home he doesn't have any siblings, it's just me and him. And at the time it was just me and him. That could be the reason. I was just thinking of, like I said, I was completely like oblivious to the fact that it could be anything else other than what I'm telling them. Oh, another thing is he had like accidents where he would fall. They would call me and be like, oh, Josiah fell. And I would get kind of angry, because I'm like, how did you allow my child to fall? Like I would be like, I'm a first time parent. Like this is my first time being a parent. I'm just thinking how any parent would. I'm sorry. Oh, we was going outside for playtime and he tripped and fell. Oh, like it would be little accidents they would tell me about, where he would bust his lip or, you know, get a cut on his knee. And I'm like, all of a sudden I enroll my child in daycare and he gets hurt. He never got hurt with me. This is things I'm thinking in my head. He never got hurt with me. But then I had to be kind of like, you know, accepting of the fact that he's a boy and he's grown up, and okay, he's in daycare now where they can't keep their eye on every child, you know. I guess I'm just thinking of possible ways, you know, to just ease my mind. Anyways, the complaints kept coming, or like I would pick him up and it would be, oh, he's not eating this or he's not eating that. Like I started to feel like, okay, there's complaints every other day or every week. Every week there's at least like 2 complaints when I pick him up. And one day, one of the ladies in the front of the main office, she pulled me aside and she's like, hey, have you ever tested your son for autism or took him for like a screening, autism screening? I'm like, no. She's like, well, because we have other kids that had like similar behaviors as your son, and if you have insurance for him, you know, it's free. You can just go and get a free autism screening, you know, just to make sure that everything is good with him. And I'm like, at this point I was so annoyed with them telling me, you know, something every other day. And I'm like, okay, yes, I'll do it. Like I agreed. I was like, I'll do it. I'll talk to his pediatrician and see what the pediatrician says, you know. And they're like, yeah, go ahead and do that. It's just certain stuff that we've been noticing, you know, that we feel like you should be aware of, and we feel like that's a good idea. So, and it was sort of like a thing like, I'm gonna do it and I'm gonna prove you guys wrong. Like it was like that. I'm not gonna lie. It was like kind of like, you guys are gonna finally probably leave my son alone. I brought it to the pediatrician's attention in one of his appointments, and if I can remember properly, the pediatrician was like, well, do you feel like he's showing signs of autism at home? And I'm like, no. Well, I mean, he doesn't say mama, he doesn't say dada, he doesn't say any of those words. And she's like, he was still one at this time. He was like, you know, it's kind of normal for them to not say much words at this age. So if you feel like you want us to basically, you know, bring it to whoever's attention, who's in charge of the autism screening, if you feel like you want us to bring it to their attention, if you want to go along with this, we're with whatever you want to do. So they don't do autism screenings or anything until they're 2 years old. So he was making 2 years that year. So I was like, okay. And they was like, well, when he makes 2 years old, we'll proceed. And fast forward, he made 2 years old. It was a normal appointment, and then she just brought in a paper with a bunch of questions, and I really wish I could have shown you guys the questions. I don't know if it's confidential. What I will do though is I'll call the pediatrician office today and ask for a copy of it, see if I could get a copy of it, so that maybe in the next video I could show you guys, because I probably won't be able to show you guys today because I'll be posting this video today. But they brought in basically a questionnaire on a paper, and if I could remember, I'm gonna try to remember at least 2 other questions. I think one of the questions was, is your child saying certain words? Other questions was, does your child give you eye contact or respond to their name when you call them? Do they do actions when you tell them to, like if you tell them to raise their hands, do they do those actions? Does your child mock certain words that you say? All of those answers were no. So if your child doesn't do any of that, that is also a sign. Only a couple of them were yes. Most of the questions were no. And basically most of the questions are no on that questionnaire. Then they send that to a neurologist, and a neurologist goes over it and then says, okay, yeah, you're basically accepted to do an autism screening. And then the neurologist has to do the screening. The pediatrician does not do a screening. The pediatrician just gives the neurologist the paperwork. So from then on, he did the screening, the autism screening, and the neurologist. It was the same thing. It was like questions. They ask you questions. You really have to pay attention to your child, because the questions you ask, you have to know the answers to. And then it's just questions like normal day stuff that they do. So you most likely will be able to answer the questions that the neurologists and the pediatricians have. But the neurologist... Other signs that I didn't say before, y'all, is them walking on their tippy toes. So sometimes they would walk on their tippy toes, or just like get on their tippy toes sometimes when they're excited, or they would flap their hands and fidget with toys. That's like other signs. Ask you questions, and then they do their own interactions with your child. So they have like development toys in the room, and they will have them play with certain toys and watch them, and they will take notes according to how your child plays with each toy or interacts with each toy. That's how they determine, they take notes for each question is different. It goes based off of how they interact with those toys that they give them. Yeah, and so basically he was diagnosed with autism disorder, and therefore he was recommended for speech therapy, occupational therapy, and ABA. Those are 3 different things. What I used to think was ABA, and I used to think that ABA was basically speech and occupational in 2, which it kind of is, but they still need all 3 of them, if that makes sense. So once your child is diagnosed with autism, it is recommended for you to do speech, occupational, ABA therapy. And ABA therapy has to do with behavioral. It's like a behavioral thing. It helps them. It's like professionals that's helping them learn how to control the behavior and deal with their behaviors, So basically, yeah, he was recommended for all those things. Now, it was very, very, very hard, right? It was very hard getting him or finding him speech therapy. Not finding it for him, because there was a lot of speech therapies. Every single one of those things that he was recommended for, guys, had a waiting list. And the waiting list was long. So in my mind, I'm like, I'm gonna get him all the help he needs, like ASAP. We're gonna get him his speech occupation. It didn't happen like that. I had to go on a waiting list, and sometimes the waiting lists for each of these things are a year, 2 years. You don't know, like it's different. It's like back to the daycare. So I finally brought it back to them, the paperwork saying he has autism, and they're like, oh yay, the lady in the office gave me a hug. She's like, oh my gosh, you don't understand how much this means to us. Like, we were so worried about him. We just wanted you, you know, to get on board and agree, and like, you know, so we can get him the help he needs. I'm thinking, okay, these people really care about my son. The whole time I'm thinking they didn't care about the whole time I was thinking that they're picking on my son, they actually cared. But later on, now, you know, we found out he has autism, and they're pressing me about, did you find speech therapy? Did you find? And I'm like, I'm calling people, and you know, it's a waiting list for all these places. And I'm not gonna say they didn't try to help me. They actually tried to help me, because they would recommend instructors that some of their daycare kids have, like, oh, you know, this person in my class has a guy that comes in and helps him with speech. I'm gonna bring, you know, your child up to him and see if he has any openings or any space to, you know, teach your child, or, you know, whatever. I remember a little while after I went on vacation, it was his like second birthday, so I went on vacation and I took him with me, and I told him, you know, he's gonna be on vacation, and it was like, okay, the guy is gonna hit you up whenever he does have an opening for, you know, him to do, I want to say it was ABA, or was it speech? It was one of those. And the guy never hit me up. I was literally looking forward to for him to hit me up, and he never hit me up. So when I came back from vacation, and they were like, oh, the guy was trying to get in contact with you, did you not get in contact? I'm like, he never called me, and I never got an email or anything from him, you know, because I gave them all my information for him to reach me. I was like, no, he never got in contact with me. So they're like, oh, really? He said he's been trying to get in contact with you, and now he's full. Now he can't accept any students. So yeah, that was that. There's certain things I had to deal with my son having autism. He got kicked out of 2 different daycares. I will eventually tell those stories in another video. This isn't a video for stories. This is a video for help, tips, you know, to help you guys out. So in order to not make this video hours long, we'll just save that for another video. Okay, so once your child gets diagnosed, guys, the first thing to do is make sure you have good insurance, good health insurance for your child, because the amount of therapy he receives weekly, it depends on your insurance. So it could be recommended from his doctor that he requires let's just say 48 hours of therapy a week. The insurance company will probably give you 1 hour a week of therapy. They will tell you how much he needs of each, whatever, depending on his behavior, because they ask you, it goes out the questionnaire. Like I said, the insurance will literally give you 5% of what the doctor is telling you is recommended for your child to get, just based off of the crappy insurance that, you know, your child has. So that's a big thing. Make sure your child has good insurance. And Medicaid is very cheap when it comes to that department. They are very cheap. You would think that your kid having, you know, autism or Down syndrome, whatever your kid has, any development issues, you would think that the government is like, you know, willing to help. No, they are willing to help, but to a certain extent. It's like, we're not even gonna get into that. Just make sure you have good insurance once you find out that your child needs any kind of therapy or any kind of help. Paying for a better insurance rather than using Medicaid would probably be a better decision for you guys. My son only gets 1 hour of therapy a week. He literally gets half an hour of speech, half an hour of occupational. He used to be in an ABA school. That's another story I have to tell in another video. This video is gonna already be extremely long, and I really don't want to bore you guys with a 3-hour long video. Although he was in ABA school, he was also in regular school, so I would have to, it was a lot of leaving work. I had to leave work a lot. I would have to leave work to take him to speech and to take him to occupational. Sometimes it happens where speech, the company that provides speech and occupational therapy, they're full of students, so you might have to find the occupational somewhere else and just do the speech there. You know, like sometimes it works like that. So I would have to leave work and pick him up from school and take him to speech or occupational, and then the ABA therapy school would be half of the week, or like it started out, I think 2 days out of the week he would not go to regular school, he would go to ABA therapy, and it was okay because he was in pre-K. Pre-K is kind of, they have a lot of lineage when it comes to leaving you take your child and go and get the help that they need. Basically, it's not much help giving him half an hour of each of those therapies a week. It's basically like no therapy at all, because children with autism, they might, if you don't consistently do something with them, and you still, even though you consistently do something with them, you're still gonna have to remind them. You know what I mean? It's like their mind kind of resets the next week. Not as in like they're like a newborn and don't know what's going on. Their mind kind of resets to where it's like, oh, I was teaching you how to cut last week, I'm gonna have to teach you how to cut again. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you basically have to train their mind to do something over and over again for them to, you know, catch on. If I could sum up how to raise a child or deal with a child with autism, if I could sum it up into 4 words, I would say accept them, love them, understand them, and you have to be patient with them. Patience, I think, is the biggest thing. Patience is the biggest thing when it comes to dealing with a child with autism. And I'm going to basically break everything down to you guys and give you guys examples of why I say these 4 words is like very important. 1, accept. You're going to have to accept a lot of things. So once you accept it, you're able to help him. It's probably easier said than done, but the sooner you accept it, the sooner you can help them. And the sooner you get them help, the better, because once you wait until they get older, it's bad, because then they already are used to their behaviors. You know what I mean? It's hard to break somebody out of something that they're used to. So just accept it so that you can, you know, help your child very soon, as soon as possible. A lot of parents, they're in denial, and I could understand why. You know, if I wasn't a patient person and an understanding person, I wouldn't be able to accept the fact that my son has autism, because I really thought my son was, I didn't see anything out the norm. Like, to me, I didn't see anything out the norm when he was a baby. So accept the fact that your child might not learn on the same level as others, and that's okay. They might not live a regular life, but honestly, what's really considered a regular life in society? You know what I mean? Like, you gotta love your child unconditionally, because although they might not be able to express it, they might not be able to communicate it yet, it takes some time. It does take time for them to express their emotions in a manner that's understandable. But with the help of therapy and you carrying those lessons from therapy home, incorporating everything they did at therapy at home or in everyday life, you'll see a big difference. I used to sit down in therapy with my son and watch how they interacted with my son and what they taught him, and I would take that and do it at home. That really helps them. That helps them tremendously. You will see a big difference. I used to be terrified of the thought of my own son not ever liking affection. Like, I would kiss him and he would turn his head. Even his dad would tell me, like, oh, he doesn't like affection. Like, but now my son randomly comes up to me, gives me a kiss on the cheek. Randomly, when I come home, he runs up to me, he gives me a hug. Yeah, give me a hug, he'll give me a hug, you know. And it's like the best thing ever. Like, the next one, understanding. A lot of people hear children screaming in grocery stores, and I used to be one of these people. You would hear children screaming in grocery stores, and most of the time you think it's just a spoiled child throwing a tantrum. What we fail to understand is that kids with autism often have this issue because they cannot yet communicate. They have a hard time communicating or expressing their emotions. So because it's hard for them, it's like us, like, we feel like our parents don't understand us. We would, you know, go in our room, close the door, and scream in a pillow, or just, you know, kids with autism, they don't know how to yet communicate. You know, we can communicate and tell our parents, you know, what's wrong. They can't. They have, like, you know, a barrier that's preventing them from, you know, directly communicating to us or showing us or expressing their concerns, any type of concerns they have, it's kind of hard for them to do that. If it's like a baby, when a baby is a baby, you don't know they're crying. That's their way of communication. A baby cries, right? It's something like that. That's a perfect example, actually. Babies cry because they can't talk and tell you how they feel. Kids with autism, they scream, they throw a tantrum. They don't know how to communicate or tell you how they feel. So that's the best way how. In situations like that, just kindly ask people to be understanding. Like, just be understanding. And you as a parent, just kindly ask other people to be understanding as well. Like, hey, I'm sorry, my son has, I mean, you know, if you're not comfortable with saying your son has autism, I'm sorry, please have patience, please be understanding with my child. Which leads me to the next word, which is patience. Patience is a big one, guys. I cannot stress this enough. Patience is such a big word when it comes to dealing with children, period, but mainly children with autism. Do not ever make them feel less of a person just because they can't use a spoon at 3 or 4 years old, or because they're still not potty trained at 5. Oh, and I can't tell you how many meals, I cannot tell you guys how many meals I've had to cook and throw away many times, okay? Until I found out what my son really likes and what my son really prefers. I can't stress how many toys. I would like buy the toys. I remember I would tell my some of my family members, like my mom, my sister, would be like, I mean, I bought him this toy, he doesn't even play with it. Like, I feel like I don't know what he likes. Like, I remember going through that stage where I really didn't know what my son liked. I didn't know what he liked to eat. I didn't know what he liked to play with. I didn't know what he liked to drink. Like, you go through that with a child with autism because it's, like I said, they can't express to you as a normal child would. Hey, mom, can I have apple juice? Like, you just have to go through giving them a variations of things and just see how they react to it. They're gonna have a lot of public tantrums, okay? Throwing themselves on the ground, throwing toys, hitting their heads. They're gonna fall. They're kind of clumsy too. Children with autism are kind of clumsy too. That could be another sign you could look for. Kids with autism seem to have a thing for things that spin. They're gonna have a lot of public tantrums. This is why I say you need patience, because they might be throwing themselves on the ground. They might hit their heads to walls. Some kids bang their heads on the wall, you know. Some kids throw toys, they throw things. They don't really have a sense of danger, so sometimes it could get very severe where they're like, you know, hurting themselves. Thankfully, my child doesn't hurt himself. Sometimes he does, you know, throw himself on the ground. That's something he kind of not just started doing, but he never used to throw himself on the ground. He kind of, you know, the behaviors change with time, so that's something that he now does. They may even hit other kids. I'm thankful that's something my son doesn't really do. He did have a babysitter at one point that babysitted another child, and she did complain to me and said he hit the other child. But what I experienced myself when I picked him up from the babysitter one day was that the other kid would do things to harass him. She even told me days later that she had to spank, because I think the other kid was related to her. She had to spank the other kid because she saw him like basically messing with my son. So this is why he would react like that and hit him, because the other kid was messing with him. So my son doesn't hit kids unless he is being, you know, being bothered. Like, he won't hit you unless he's being bothered. That is not the case for all kids with autism. Some kids with autism hit other kids out of tantrums, just throwing tantrums. They don't mean any harm. Kids with autism don't ever mean any harm. Like I said, they're now aware of danger, so you have to let them down easy. Be patient. You have to have a lot of patience to get them through everything. Like, to get them through their tantrums, you have to have patience. Yelling will not get you anywhere. You yelling at a child, and what I had to realize that gentle parenting is the best thing, honestly. You have to be very gentle. You can't scream, and you want to scream because it's like sometimes they don't listen. They don't listen. And it's not because they don't want to listen, you know. It's like they just want to be understood. Kids with autism just want to be understood. They want to be accepted, loved, understood, and they just want you to have patience with them. Those 4 words are like gold, okay, when it comes to dealing with those things. The older they get, the more their behavior changes, guys. If you guys have questions in the comments, I will answer every single question that you guys have. Because like I said, he's 4 now. I've experienced a lot of things with him since 2 years old, since 1 year old, you know. Even if your child is 1 year old, I can like give you, I can answer your questions, any questions you have for your 1 year old. If you're noticing these things very early on, it is the best time to notice those things very early. Is the best time. Act on it. Once you notice those things, act on it very fast. Do not second guess yourself. If it doesn't cost you, even if it does, honestly, if it doesn't cost you much, if it does, act on it as quick as you can, because the more you sit there and not get your child help, the harder it is for them when they get older. It is very hard for them once they get older to break out of a behavior that they are used to. You know, if you're used to something and then you're older and you have this way of doing what you're used to, it's kind of hard to get you out of that routine. Just do it. Just take your child for autism screening. It doesn't hurt them. It doesn't hurt them at all. Anything you do can only help your child. Just think of it like that. You cannot hurt your child. And that's what I had in my mind when going through this journey of finding out my son had autism. In my mind, I'm like, okay, anything that I am doing is not gonna hurt him. You know, me taking him to a neurologist, me taking him, you know, it's not gonna hurt him. Therapy, not gonna hurt them. If anything, it's gonna help them. If you feel like your child is showing signs of autism and you want to get them a therapist or you want to get them help, do it. It's not gonna hurt them. I promise you, it's not gonna hurt them. If anything, it's gonna make a big difference. It's gonna be good for them. But I think I said everything. I feel like my talking is a little chopped up. I have to do better with, I'm not really good with talking. I was a shy child. I was so shy as a child. And if you went to school with me, you know I've been a really shy. I was so shy. And so this is very hard for me. If you know me or went to school with me, you know this is very hard for me. But my channel is all about helping people, growing, you know, just helping anybody I could. And even me getting help, because me being on a platform and, you know, telling you guys my story, I could get help too. We could learn from each other, basically. I hope that I help the parents that are questioning, you know, autism and signs of autism. I really hope that I helped you guys. And if I didn't say anything in this video that pertain to you guys can ask me questions and I will answer every single question you have in the comments. So thank you for watching this video, and if you guys feel like it helped you and that this video will help somebody else, please share it. Subscribe to my channel for more videos, because I will be showing you guys some activities that I do with my son. If you guys want me to, I could show you some things that he eats, things that kids with autism, I feel like kids with autism would eat, because there's a lot of things that I make that he loves. So I can show that to you guys later on. If you let me know in the comments, I could show you guys activities or toys that I buy for my son that he now actually enjoys and plays with. Yeah, thank you for watching. If you watched this whole video, thank you so much, and I love you. Bye.